for it, though. When practice, I believe they have the day off today. Let's see, Sunday, Monday, Tuesday. They should have the day off today. Then they go back at it Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and then day off Sunday. But the practice stats yesterday, Sam Darnold 2 of 6. Worst practice of training camp. And you don't hear a lot about it. That's what we're talking about. That's all.
Yeah.
You don't hear a lot about it. Now, Trey went 4 of 6. A couple of receivers dropped some passes, but people started arguing and saying, well, it was inaccurate. The balls hit the receiver's hands. If it hits your receiver's hands, got to make a play. We did this all the time with Jimmy Garoppolo. He threw inaccurate passes all the time, Spadone. But if it hits the receiver's hands, you got to make the play.
It's fascinating. This whole just diving into the 10 of 12, 11 of 11, looked strong. I was like, I just don't remember doing any of this in the years past, like dissecting this sort of thing. Like, I'm just trying to think back to like the 49ers of Pat Raiders of past when they were both training camps were here, one in Napa, one in Santa Clara. It's just like, I don't recall doing this. It's just so interesting to me how we're just diving into the X's and O's of training camp 11-11. Yeah. Like, when it's joint practices, Bonte, and things happen, then I will raise my eyes a little bit, because that's against a whole nother professional franchise. That's a team that doesn't know you. That's going to be fascinating. That's next week, right, in Henderson, Nevada, when they take on the Raiders for Thursday and Friday, and then they have the preseason game on Saturday or Sunday, I believe. So I'm fascinated with that, and then preseason games. But outside of that, it's gotten to the point where it's like, all right, we've jumped the shark here a little bit. It's getting out of control now.
It is getting out of control.
I'm becoming numb to it. Shout out Lincoln Park.
Trey Lance stacking multiple good days. Lincoln Park kind of flew over my head. Although I have heard of that quote.
Lincoln Park, you've heard of the comp with him and with Lincoln Park and Jay-Z. I'm sure.
Yeah.
Numb Encore.
Yep.
There you go.
Yep. Classic song, classic video. But Trey Lance is stacking days in practice. He is stacking good days. That's 3 straight good days for Trey Lance. And the one thing about Trey Lance that doesn't get talked about enough is he is staying after practice. You know, you heard a lot about him missing the throw to Deebo Samuel in the end zone. You can't miss a throw. Well, he stayed after practice and worked on that throw. Yesterday after practice, worked on his deep throws, worked on his short stuff. Trey Lance is putting in the work to try to be the backup to Brock Purdy. Now, Brock Purdy, we teased this long enough. And before we get to Mike Sando, over-under on Brock Purdy games played. Go ahead, bring it to me, Spadone.
If I give you, all right, so Brock Purdy, and we know this with the 49ers quarterback situation, only Jimmy Garoppolo back in the 2019-2020 season started every single game for the San Francisco 49ers. Every single one, Bonte. Outside of that, for Kyle Shanahan, it's been a mixed bag. So if I was going to tell you the over-under on starts for Brock Purdy this upcoming season, I'm going to put it at 12.5.
Wow.
Going over or under?
Brock Purdy starts 12.5. I'm going under.
Wow. Okay.
I'm going under.
And why is that? Is that going to be because of injury, or this team's going to be that damn good where maybe
injury? Because if he goes on the field, Brock Purdy's going to play fine. He's going to play fine. He's going to make all the throws. He's going to take care of the football. But quietly, news came out yesterday that he suffered a broken rib in the Tampa Bay game.
You've been on that, yeah.
And he said it's happened on the second or third series. Now, today, I didn't have time yesterday, but today I want to go back and watch that game and try to find when he suffered that broken rib injury. Now, that's a broken rib. Could have been ribs. Mm-hmm. They didn't know if he was going to play that Thursday. Remember, it was a short week from Tampa to Seattle, 4 days off. They didn't know if he was going to play.
It's true.
So, now that's a broken rib injury. And now it's a torn UCL. That's just in 8 games, folks.
And that's a throwing elbow that was already limited to begin with. Not a strong arm. He's not a strong arm quarterback.
So I do have concerns about him holding up. I don't have concerns about his ability. Brock Purdy's ability has led him to be the starting quarterback of the 49ers, and I have no issue with that whatsoever. What's going to happen when TJ Watt, as I saw Brian Baldinger doing drills with TJ Watt yesterday.
I love Baldy so much. I can't wait to have him back on here.
TJ Watt's going to be lined up over Colton McKivitz at right tackle. What's going to happen when TJ Watt gets a clean hit on Brock Purdy? I don't know, man.
Aaron Donald, week 2, potentially? It's a big boy.
I don't know about Brock Purdy holding up over a full 17-game schedule.
I'm just looking at 4 of those first 5 games, Bonte. Steelers, TJ Watt. Aaron Donald, week 2. And I understand you've kind of handled Aaron Donald a lot, maybe not in that NFC Championship game, but for the most part. Giants, they got some boys on that D-line.
Oh, Thibodeau's solid.
Yes.
Dexter Lawrence.
Dexter Lawrence.
Is it Dexter Lawrence or Jackson? A young man from Clemson.
Yeah, you think
D-tackle.
Yeah. Dexter Lawrence, because DeMarcus Lawrence is
Dallas.
who you'll
Dexter
see
Lawrence.
on October 8th.
Yeah.
So you're seeing a lot. Micah Parsons.
Yeah. Giants are tough up front.
Browns, Myles Garrett. That's the first 6 weeks. You're seeing some of the premier pass rushers in this league, and that's the NFL. Like, there's guys everywhere, but specifically, you're going T.J. Watt, Aaron Donald, Micah Parsons, Myles Garrett. He's going to be tested early. I can't wait for football, man. Hey, Hall of Fame game, by the way.
Thursday.
Is that tomorrow?
It's tomorrow.
It's tomorrow.
415 Comcast, Xfinity mobile text line. Xfinity mobile text line. 415. Guru has the pivot moves of James Wiseman in the post. That's a funny one. 650. Broken rib was on the first drive of the game. Got smoked in a misdirection on a throw. Actually, first play of the game. Another 650 says. Wow. Remember that first play of the game? He got smoked.
That's right. He got popped.
They threw a flag on that play, which was a little suspect.
Was that Shaq Barrett?
No, it wasn't Shaq Barrett. It felt like it was a safety.
Okay.
Came in and smoked.
You're right. It was.
And then they go down to score, and they lead 7-0. Very impressive drive. 925, no one talks about Darnold when he has a bad day because the Niners didn't give up 2 first-round picks for him. Well, he was a number 3 overall pick. Maybe there's 5 years. Maybe
there's something to that. That's come to expect that now from Sam Darnold, where it's just like, Sam Darnold had a bad game. Darnold.
A lot of people expect Sam Darnold to be the backup to Brock Purdy.
Does Mike Sando?
Let's get Mike Sando on here. I love Mike Sando's work. Long time. He's with the Athletic now. He has his quarterback tiers, but I remember him back in the day covered the NFC West, whether it was Seattle, whether it was the Niners. And he was that NFC West blogger. Mike Sando's been doing it for a long, long time. I love his work. We love his work at the Athletic now, and his quarterback tiers, we all salivate over them. And it got released the other day. And he had Brock Purdy at number 24, just outside of tier 3. Although some guys voted for him to be 2 or 3. It was very interesting. Mike Sando joins your morning roast here on 95.7 The Game. Sando, good morning, man. Long time no talk. How you been?
I've been great. Thanks for having me on. Yeah, NFC West days. Some fond memories there. Some good 49er teams. Some good rivalry games. And the 49ers are still good. So there you go.
Yeah, after a few struggle years, they are good now. They have a lot of expectations this season, especially with the team around the quarterback spot. You know, you have Christian McCaffrey, George Kittle, Trent Williams, Debo, Brandon Ayuk. The list goes on alongside the top 3 defense in the league. But your quarterback tiers were released, and you have Brock Purdy at number 24, which I thought was appropriate. And the way you described your tier 4 was a guy with not a lot of body of work, unproven. And so let's lead to that. Brock Purdy, one guy in that quote, though, in your capsule when it came to Brock Purdy, said that if Brock Purdy was on any other team, that team would lose half its games. What did you think about that quote from that offensive coach?
Well, it's probably an exaggeration, but I'll give you an example here. That's in the last 5 years, the Raiders or the 49ers statistically are 6th on defense and special teams. Okay, they're 6th in the league. The Raiders are 32nd. Okay, so when you look at Jimmy G leaving the 49ers to the Raiders, this will be the ultimate test of this because he's going to go to a team where they don't have a top 5 defense. And he's not going to win 70% of his games anymore. It would be very surprising if he did. So I think that's what you're getting at with Purdy on a limited body of work. It's a very favorable situation with the talent you mentioned on offense, an elite play caller, and then a very high margin of error because your defense is so good that if you do punt or play conservatively or just run the ball or don't put much on the quarterback, you might get the ball back and the score hasn't changed, right? Because your defense is so good. You would say with Purdy, there's probably not some amazing elite traits that people are seeing and saying, you know what, wow, I'm going to give him a 2 right now. So I think people were impressed with what he did, don't think the level of difficulty was all that high, and want to see it over a full season before elevating him. I think if he does what he did last year, and just is able to put together a fuller season, for sure he's moving into tier 3 and maybe he presses towards the top of it.
So the backup quarterback position for the 49ers right now is kind of the big talking point of camp, right? You got Sam Darnold, you got Trey Lance, and now we got this Brandon Allen talk. What do you make of Trey Lance thus far in the league? And do you think this is kind of a make or break year for him with the 49ers if indeed he does get demoted down to the QB3 or hell, even gets cut.
Well, I don't know how we could say any if we're putting Brock Purdy in tier 4 because we don't have enough information. I mean, we don't have any information on Trey Lance other than he hasn't been able to play, and he hasn't just wowed when he has been able to play or practice. He didn't just wow everybody in the short period of time. So I think the 49ers probably would love to have an exit strategy on it. The problem for them is they gave up so much money in draft capital that if they just kind of cut bait or moved on at a real discount, it doesn't look good. I think they would love to have some team bail them out by giving them something they could hang their hat on in return for him. But who's going to do that, right? Based on probably what the evaluation was coming out, coupled with what's happened since then, there's no reason any team on the outside is going to buy high. So as long as they win, no one's going to be really accountable for that draft selection probably. But if they were to have major quarterback issues and Trey Lance couldn't solve them, I think it would be interesting to see how that would shake out and where the blame would go.
Mike Sando here on Morning Ross on 95.7 The Game. His quarterback tiers was released the other day, and he had Brock Purdy at 24 after getting a lot of votes from coaches around the league or whatnot. Was there any concerns when it came, going back to Brock Purdy, Mike, was there any concerns from these offensive coordinators or coaches or GMs, whoever you talk to, about Brock Purdy's durability? Because it was released yesterday that he did suffer broken ribs against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers last week, and he showed a lot of toughness in playing on that short week in Seattle, not to mention the torn UCL he's coming back from. Was there any concerns about his durability and lasting over 17 games?
No, nobody was bringing that up. They didn't feel like the injury that he suffered was necessarily an indicator of an inability to stay on the field for a long period of time. I don't know that he had some kind of major injury history at college. You can correct me if I'm wrong there. So I didn't pick up that part of it at all. I think people kind of liked the intangible stuff, more than the tangible, and that's what happens when you're a young player who's a late draft pick. It takes a while for you to outperform your draft evaluation, right?
Right.
That's what we talked about, the special traits. It wasn't like there was some amazing thing. So I don't remember durability specifically being, pointed to as something that, this guy's not going to be able to hold up.
Right.
So a guy you have on your tier 2, and it was a big talking point for us the last couple of days. We really appreciate this article, Mike, because we really milked it for a few hours here on the Morning Roast. Kirk Cousins. This guy has been up and down, whenever there's tier 2, tier 3, and it's just like a lightning rod, if you will, for 49ers people, because Kyle Shanahan has been linked to this guy for a long time. Like, listen, he likes Kirk. He was there for his rookie year. His dad drafted him back with the Washington, now Commanders. What do you make of Kirk Cousins? And the question I want to throw to you as well is, would you rather have Kirk Cousins this season or the collection of 49ers quarterbacks if you were Kyle Shanahan?
Probably Kirk Cousins. I mean, because it's such a high floor. You know what you're getting, and there's no uncertainty. I don't know that the collective upside of the other three. Now, some people may dispute me on that. If you're a big believer in Brock Purdy and think there's great upside, maybe they think that. But I would think that knowing what you're getting in Kirk Cousins for a team that's close in a conference where you may not have to have a great quarterback to get to the Super Bowl would have more value than the potential for downside, whether it's the durability, whether it's just, hey, the talent, right, of what is there. I certainly wouldn't want to be banking on Sam Darnold and Trey Lance. I don't know how you could feel good about that with a team that is close. You may feel a little better. You should with Purdy, but to me, there's a security of a Kirk Cousins who's a known commodity in the NFL for a long time.
Well said.
Yeah, well said. Mike Sando, senior NFL writer for The Athletic after 12 years with ESPN. He's been doing it for a long time. Selector for the Pro Football Hall of Fame. Of course, the Hall of Fame game on Thursday to get the season kicked off. Sam Darnold there, the Reclamation Project, and he has the arm talent. Watching him at practice, ball comes out, he's got the zip, but he is a turnover machine. And he's been inconsistent. Now, you could blame it on the organizations, the dysfunction, the weapons around him. What is your take on Sam Darnold here as he comes to San Francisco and compete for the backup job?
Yeah, that really those traits and abilities have not translated proportionally to performance on the field for whatever reason. I do think that there is some kind of an organizational component to it. Obviously, the situation you're in is a big deal for quarterbacks, especially kind of the mid-tier quarterback, right? You're going to look, Tua is going to look a lot different with these wide receivers, Mike McDaniel's offense in Miami than he looked when he came into the league and he didn't have any of that. Right. Or Jared Goff with Jeff Fisher versus with Sean McVay. It matters a lot. So I'm sure Sam Darnold could look a lot better than he has looked if he was in a great situation. But I think you're always left with the personnel people liking the traits more than anybody likes the results on the field. So there seems to be a little bit of a gap there in his ability to put it together. Seems real. He has been in the quarterback tiers 4 times before. He was in it in 2019, 20, 21, and 22. And his average tier vote got a little worse every year. Just a little worse. So he didn't really ever get some momentum going, despite the fact that I think some people like those traits that you described.
Yeah, no doubt. Who's a quarterback you're looking at here? Maybe that's in tier 4. Like I see Jordan Love, and I'm thinking to myself, boy, Jordan Love has Christian Watson, has some good running backs, Matt LaFleur. I think Jordan Love could make a big jump in these tiers here. Who's a quarterback in tier 4 that you expect to make a big jump and maybe get into tier 3 or tier 2 by the end of the season?
Yeah, I think Kenny Pickett will go to tier 3. I don't know if it's a huge jump, but I think that he has a really safe profile. Like, I don't feel like he's going to go rocket up to the top of tier 2 or anything, but I think he'll be a solid starter. You would think Purdy can be a solid starter, move into tier 3. Jordan Love probably has a little bit more boom or bust to him. No one really knows what to make after one game. How could we know, right? I mean, to me, there's questions there to me with the Packers and him, just sort of the evaluation of him, and now a new evaluation of Matt LaFleur absent Aaron Rodgers. I think it's a different ballgame. So I'm a little bit more wait and see on Jordan Love. I think in tier 3, Justin Fields is the most interesting one, because if you look at the path that Jalen Hurts and Josh Allen to some extent have followed in their careers as really athletic guys who struggled to be consistent passers early, either in college or early in their careers, those guys kind of got the polish in their passing game to really make a rise. Josh Allen in tier 1, Jalen Hurts right on the verge and on his way to tier 1 if he has another good year. So I think Fields is really, for a low tier 3, is the one a lot of people will be watching this year.
Conversely, Mike, who do you think could take a step back this year? We're talking about the step up. Who can take a step down from some of these tiers, do you believe?
Okay, so I thought that the voters were a little bit kind to Matthew Stafford. I mean, he held pretty solidly into tier 2 with some signs that both the team and him are, maybe headed in the wrong direction. I think there's 2 guys in tier 2 that are really volatile, that could go either way. And Lamar Jackson's less volatile than Deshaun Watson, but he's got the new offense, the new ability in the passing game with those receivers. It's a step into a little bit of a new world for him. He's been so sensational with that offense where everyone's worried about the run. He gets a chance to kind of put himself out there a little more as a passer, with some hope that that'll be great for him and some concern that, maybe that's not his game, right? So I think he could go into tier 1 or sink in tier 2. And then Deshaun Watson was a total mystery last year. Like, where was the guy? A couple of years ago, he was tier 1. He looked like tier 4 last year. So where does he should probably be somewhere other than where he is. I'm not sure where that is, if it's higher or lower.
What do you make of Derek Carr this year with the Saints? Obviously, throughout his career with the Raiders, he's never really had a true defense. Now he's going into a situation, kind of a weaker division. You got Baker Mayfield, you got Bryce Young, not C.J. Stroud, but help me out here. Who else got Bryce Young? You got Baker Mayfield.
Olave's there. Who are you talking about?
The quarterbacks in the division. My bad.
The NFC South.
NFC South. Thank you.
Yeah. Baker Mayfield.
Bryce Young,
Derek Carr.
Mayfield. Bryce Young, Baker Mayfield, and
Desmond Ritter. Thank you. That was the one I mixed up there. Thank you. I appreciate that. So they're going into not a very top heavy division, if you will. What do you make of Derek Carr moving into there and his sort of expectations? Because it feels like, I'd say make or break, but like there's no excuses now when it comes to not having a defense.
Totally. If you look at the 1 year that the Raiders had kind of an even mid defense when he was there, they went 12-4. So, to me, there's a huge difference. And the Raiders have been the absolute worst. If you look over the last 5 years, the teams that were in the top 8 in defense and special teams, they all had winning records. The bottom 8 all had losing records unless they had Mahomes, Rodgers, or Justin Herbert and Philip Rivers. So I think Derek Carr is kind of a mid-tier quarterback who's going to succeed or fail based more on what's around him. And he's had extreme bad around him on the defensive side. And I think if you look at the last couple of years, the Saints have been in the top 5 on defense. So let's just say the Saints are 10th on defense. In that division, to me, that equates to a winning record for Derek Carr.
There it is.
Very
Mike
interesting.
Sando, senior NFL writer for The Athletic. I wonder where Mac Jones would have been if the Niners would have selected him instead of Trey Lance.
Oh, boy.
That's a conversation for another day. We don't need to get our audience fired up about that. Mike Sando, great job on the quarterback tiers. We got to do it more, not just when you release the articles, because you do a good job covering the league and all the ins and outs of the NFL. Mike, continue the great work. Enjoy the Hall of Fame game on Thursday when the Jets take on the Browns.
Appreciate it. You guys have a good one.
Thanks,
You too.
Mike.
Mike Sando here on the Morning Roast on
great.
95.7 The Game.